The original project started off sometime last year, the early part of last year, when in DT11 we were looking for projects, and a number of projects ideas came up, and one of them was to do something with broadband, and one thing led to another, and anyway we developed it so that it was to take in, not just to do a village, but to do the whole of North Dorset, and it turned out that was for 69,000 people, 23,000 homes, and about 3,000, just under 3,000 businesses. That's how that was the area that we were looking at doing. So it's quite an ambitious project. We pretty much wrapped up phase one. Phase one was to show proof of need, which is always essential if you're going to go for any funding. And that means that you actually have to have hard evidence that people, the community if you like, actually want what you're trying to do. And that was covered by our survey, which we were very pleased with. We got very good results on that. We got over 1,000 responses, 1,200 responses. And the second part of phase one was to produce a report, or a business plan, in our case a report, done by a really well recognised person, in our case Adrian Worcester, who's very well thought of, highly regarded in the broadband industry. And he produced his report. We got some funding from Sowing Seeds to do it. And yes, and on Friday we did a presentation to pretty much the great and the good, and it was a hugely successful meeting.
Can I do one with Steve, holding Steve's hand?
You can hold my hand.
Can I hold my hand over here then, Steve?
I'll go on again.
There we go. Right.
Right.
And if you don't mind, I'm just going to have a couple with Joe presenting the
Good.
trip.
Good.
With you guys.
Oh, right.
Oh, I see.
So I'm going to take the snaps, and Joe's going to hold your hands.
The findings on the survey were very much what we expected, and was that broadband is not good in this part of the world, except in small pockets. What the report did was, using this data and other data that Adrian had accumulated, he looked at the various aspects of it, and a couple of things really sort of stood out. One of them is that about 31% of the people in North Dorset have got 2 meg or less on their broadband.
So small businesses in this area that are thinking of setting up and need access to broadband, you could stay in one of the villages and get up to 5, you could come into Blandford and get up to 40, or you could go into Bournemouth and get up to 1,000, all for about the same price. Where are you going to go? And I think that also becomes sort of business is likely to gravitate south out of the area if you're not careful, and you become much more of a dormant place. That's a real risk, I think.
There is a tiny little development in Starpane, and it was an old farm with a farmyard, and in order to get the planning permissions, the planners insisted that part of the farm, some of the farm buildings were used as starter units, the usual workshop with an office up above. And that was some 4 years ago. They haven't been able to let them. They're very nice, but they haven't been able to let them because the broadband in Starpane is dire, and people will simply not move into an area where they can't get broadband. It will not happen.
I live in Oxfordshire. To give you an idea of the scale of the problem, in the UK will make available to a council £5 to £10 million. For Oxfordshire to fix their problem permanently and forever will cost £160 million. So the BDUK cash is 5% of what they want. You're having to raise the other 95%. Actually, you're probably better ignoring the 5% from the government, because they'll have a different set of strings attached to it. So even the gap funding thing is quite challenging. The gap is quite wide at the moment. It needs more involvement. So So the partnership piece is where you start bringing together the industry with the public sector, with the community sector, and you work together on how you're going to fix this. And I think probably that's the most viable route for most people in places like North Dorset. The final one is the government utility, where the government says, like Australia did, we're just going to build this. It's just not going to happen.
The next step is to explore all avenues of funding, not necessarily to chase them, but certainly to go out and see what's out there. I mean, there are various sources. There's some Broadband Delivery UK, generally known as BD UK money, on offer. DEFRA has got a small pot of money for rural broadband, which we fit into. The European Investment Bank is prepared to lend money against broadband, but it has to be match funded. We're hoping that the Sowing Seeds RDPE funding will resume in the autumn, and we can apply for that. So there's a number of different things, but the biggest one is the Dorset Public Service Network, where the County Council is going to be laying a whole network of fibre cables to all the public buildings. Now, if we can plug into that, it'll save us a huge amount of infrastructure costs. So that's the sort of thing we're looking to do. I think that one has to be realistic. I think that the cabling will be to the main centres of population, sort of up to very small villages. Beyond that, and in the more remote and the very rural areas, we might need to look at a wireless or a satellite solution, but they will be the exception rather than the rule. With school children, more and more, they're being encouraged to look for things online, to do their research and everything else online. If you can't get online, or if it's terribly slow, or if you can't really look at pictures, or even video clips, even more so, then the children in those areas will actually be disadvantaged, because it won't be accepted by the powers that be, as it were, that they had bad broadband. They will assume that everybody has good broadband. And the same with e-health, it's the same thing. You know, they're going to start delivering a lot of health services with broadband. Not so many today, but watch this space in 6 months, a year, or 2 years down the line. There'll be an awful lot. The industry benchmark is iPlayer, BBC iPlayer. Can you download from the BBC iPlayer, and does it make sense when you watch it? And that's about 2 and a bit megs. Below that, it just doesn't work. So that's the benchmark today, but tomorrow it's going to be completely different.
So I think where we go forward from here is that we've got to bring our very good and successful businesses into the equation, make sure that they are very much part of this project, that they feel ownership of it. It's not something being done by the public sector or by a worthy community group, that everybody is involved in this. But at the end of the day, I think is going to be a community solution. And I repeat what I always say on these occasions, is that if you need my help and you think I can do something useful, I'm very willing to do that. Thank you very much.
You can form an orderly queue next to Bob in a few minutes, and then BT, I think we'll take you up on that.